Alright, we are recording, and I think it's going to be another 40 minutes. I am very much looking forward to when I finish this and can get to a better written story. It's... Start at the top. This I actually kind of liked. So, they're about to enter the room, Anakin and Obi-Wan, where we got Palpatine and Dooku, which Dooku's chosen the most dramatic place to be. We haven't gotten to him yet, but Anakin is so enraged over, we're finally there to rescue Palpatine. He's so enraged that he actually cracks the grip of his lightsaber. This is actually kind of cool, that he's just using the mechanical hand and is doing all that. Which, to be fair, well, not to be fair, but you'd think that there would be sensors or something in that would prevent that, but anyway. Yeah. Then we also have a little bit, where we're continuing with Dooku's racism and very dismissive attitude, which is just, it weakens the character so much. It really makes him not... Hang on. There's another one of these. Another typo. I gotta fix it. There it is. Okay. It really does just harm the character, and it's a bad choice. And we'll get to that a little bit more at the end for what my final note is on this. And I just feel like leaving that for the end, not getting to it right away. Some bad science fiction. I know, it's science fantasy, but it still is. This is dumb. The idea that, the ship's being damaged. Well, let's start taking power away from life support, which means that the lights are turning off in order to affect damage control. It's like... What? So the ship will be repaired, but everyone's dead on it. Or the ship needs repairs, but we can't see where they are because the lights are... So, I might be a little biased here because in A Letter from Catherine, you find a ghost ship. And, actually, one thing they do talk about is they even will lower light levels because, you don't need that, right? But it still finds a ghost ship. And I actually have emergency lights set up that have a very special design to them. And this is something that's absolutely fiction. The idea that you could basically, if you plug it in and charge it for a minute, and all the emergency lights are set up, but they specifically set up to be charged this way. There's a 60-to-1. If you charge for 1 minute, you will get an hour of light out of them. It's a dim light, but it's still there. Okay? That's completely intentional for me, because light you kind of need. It's a way for you to function. And the idea that you would sacrifice life support for damage control, it's like, in the heat of a battle, maybe, but not your light. I can understand turning off the heaters to keep you warm, because it's like, well, there's going to be heat on board that'll stay there for a while. I can understand turning off some of the atmosphere recycling, because again, you're expecting the battle to last potentially minutes or just hours, which again, there's just atmosphere sitting there. You have a capacity there for it. You don't have that with light, and you need it. This is like... So, fun fact, there are emergency exit signs that if you look at them, if you inspect them, you will find that there are radiation warnings on them. I'm going to say this. The reason why, and I don't remember what the material is, but it actually does have a radioactive material there. The reason is the radiation it's releasing is hitting a phosphor, which is just a material that when struck by energy, illuminates. Old CRTs and also plasma televisions use phosphors. I don't remember what a plasma TV uses to excite the phosphor, but in CRT it was an electron gun where we would just aim an electron, hit it, and that would cause it to light up. Actually, also once saw something. This would have been 15, 16 years ago. My eyes, this is completely an aside, my eyes are actually pretty damn good when it comes to seeing bright lights. Like, I have been... Somebody once decided to be mean to me and shine a laser point in my eye. This was in high school at lunch. I was just doing that. I just glared at them. Just ignored the laser and was just glaring at them. It was just, normal pocket laser pointer, which, by the way, those actually have the matching optical pressure of looking at the sun. And I have been able to look at the sun, and it's like, yeah. And look, I mean, I can do that. I once saw somebody it was violet to ultraviolet LED, I believe, but underneath a phosphor cap. That thing made my eyes hurt. That's how freaking bright that was. Okay? Just to help explain. Phosphors are actually a really, really neat thing. Type of material. And yeah, you can do some neat stuff there. But the idea that you would turn off lights is like, no, we have technology today that ensures that there's light when there's no electricity. It's like, because it's that important. And this is like, oh, yes, light's the first thing to turn off. It's... What's the next standpoint? Okay, yeah, this is one. So lights are off when... My head hurts now. When Anakin and Obi-Wan are, like, creeping up in the room. And Anakin isn't entirely sure, because they can tell there's some figure there in this seat up there. He can tell there's a figure there, but he's not sure who it is. Not until the lights come on and sees it as Palpatine. It's like, hold on. He has the Force. Force can sense people. And it's already been established, especially in the previous book, in Attack of the Clones, that his personal connection with his mother is sufficient that despite miles apart, even planets apart, but mainly miles, like when he's at the Lars homestead, despite her being miles and miles away, he could find her. Right? He knew she was out there and knew the general direction, was able to go, and still needs some direction, but knew she was there. Okay? Palpatine is across the room and he can't be certain. And he does have a personal connection with him as well. Okay? So he would be able to tell that's Palpatine. But no, needs the lights on. It's kind of like how I don't like how we basically never have the Force being fully used. Like in a battle. I mean, it's like, it almost seemed like an accident in Attack of the Clones when Anakin put up a Force wall, essentially, to cut off Dooku's movements. And he only does it the one time. It's like, that's something that should just be happening all the time. All the Jedi should be trained in just how they focus on a fight. Should also be turning the Force to that same focus. That simply for how they interact with Force. That's how it should be. We never get that. And it seems like we also have issues like this. What I was just talking about with not sensing, where it's like completely inconsistent and incoherent. I would like to say mainly in lacking coherence, but I could also see it just being incoherent as well. Or what the hell is it doing? What the hell is a Force? What is somebody able to do with it? And are they using it or are they not using it? Alright, next thing I have, actually kind of interesting. So, Dooku starts pulling in the Force, because apparently that's what you do. You have to charge up like a Dragon Ball Z character or something. But anyway, he's doing that. I actually didn't think about that when I was writing the note, but it is kind of a good point. It's like, why does he have to do... He describes it as feeling as though he is the center of the universe, that he is pulling power from the whole of the universe. I'm not sure that's actually how the Force would work, especially because when you think about it, if that's the case, he has to be pulling the energy from somewhere. And the Force is also like, it flows through all living beings. So does that mean he's technically pulling life out of people? Because if so, that's a very powerful attack. And why is he not just using that to kill people? He does this, and he describes it as feeling like he is the center of the universe. Not that he is at the center of the universe, but that he has become the center of the universe, right? And in this state, he is able to see others and their presence in the Force. And he sees with Obi-Wan that he's like a luminous being, transparent, and you see the like idyllic view of the Force that the Jedi have or something like that. But definitely a luminous being. Which is kind of funny because Yoda says we are all luminous beings, not this fleshy. Anakin, he looks at it and sees he's like the storm before tornado. It's like, okay, that makes sense because he is kind of temperamental and all that. That makes sense. And Obi-Wan being a true Jedi, the ultimate Jedi. So that makes sense. But then he describes Palpatine, who is Sidious. And I find this description a little silly. Because he describes him as being like an event horizon, a black hole. Center of the universe scale power, black hole. Black holes exist within the universe. Therefore would be lesser than universe scale power. But he is also recognized that Palpatine is more powerful. What I did put in the notes is the idea that he is perfect nothingness there. That's how he sees him in this. It's like, okay, this is kind of neat, kind of interesting, but also a very major problem. The Jedi never sensed this? I mean, it's even back in Phantom Menace, I think we also may have had a little bit of it in the original trilogy. You can sense Force users. And I would think, again, it's the Force is like life itself, is an energy of life itself. If you suddenly notice, that dude walking around there has literally none of that. He is blank. He is nothing. I'd probably be like, that isn't that a red flag? Doesn't that mean something? Because, I mean, that he must be dead or he's hiding it, right? So, if he's hiding it, and he's not a Jedi, what's left? Because he's powerful, he's trained. So what's left? Sith. Okay. So we kill him then, right? I mean, it's like, this is... There are consequences to these words, consequences to these details. Except there aren't any. One thing that it does, and this is just... I hate this being... There's actually another thing as well that we're going to get to. That I hate these tropes and these writing methods. I don't even want to... Writing methods. I don't even want to call it writing. Because it's just obnoxious to me. And it's boring. And it's distracting. Which is name dropping for things that we don't know. Like they... talk about, Dooku's like, oh yes, that's this fighting style, that's this fighting style, that's that fighting style, that's that fighting style, and I'm using this fighting style and that fighting style. And talking about, oh yes, I'm at this location, this location, this location, this is all gibberish. It means nothing to me. Okay? Why are you wasting my time? Why did you waste your time writing, but why did you waste my time having to read it? It's boring. It's just a distraction. It's like, I'm trying to be in the moment here, and you're making me now be like, okay, do I know what this is? No, I don't. Do I know what this is? No, I don't. Do you know what this is? No, I don't. Do I know what this... Just tell me what's happening. Okay? I mean, mentioning things like Ventress. There's like 2 mentions of her. One of Obi-Wan basically warning Anakin that this isn't going to be like her. Like fighting her, this Dooku's a Sith Lord. She was just a dark Force user, a dark Jedi. That's it. And so it's like we get the context there. Okay, so this is somebody they fought before and apparently defeated before. He's different. Okay, I don't really understand that context, but it still is. I get the history of who she is, why this comment would be made. That's all encapsulated there perfectly. But something like, let me see if I can actually find an example here of the nonsense. And I think I may have gone back. Yeah, went back too far. Should probably just skip it at this point. So I really do want to find it just to prove my point. Oh, here's some of it. Okay. Nope, I don't want to use that one because that gets to a later point. I am sorry, I really should have marked some of this. Wait, he could have slaughtered both of them as casually as that creature Maul had destroyed the Vigos of the Black Sun. Well, the what? I mean, that's one example, but it's like, huh? He also really doesn't like Maul. Which I guess is kind of fair, but it's... I mean, part of it is probably just the racism that calling Maul an animal. Where is it? What? No, that's not. Oh, but that is also something. Hang on. Didn't we have... Like the proverbial Corellian multipede. Now that he had started thinking about what he was doing, he could no longer walk. It's like... Huh? What the hell's a Corellian multipede? I feel like you could describe this, you could give an example here without making things up. It's something else that we would know. And it's also kind of a matter of Zen as well. The unaimed arrow never misses. That's not that, oh, if you don't care where you're aiming, it'll hit wherever you go. No, it's that you practice to the point that you simply want the arrow to go there, and so you fire the arrow and it will go there. That it's like, it just flows that way. That's more so what the Zen is there. And it's basically saying that once you stop and start thinking about it, like Musashi wrote in Book of Five Rings, so it's been a while since I read that. But I remember a point being made that if you start thinking about the point of your sword, you'll be caught by the point of... Well, when you start thinking about the point of the sword, you'll be caught by the point of the sword. That's like, you have to have that Zen kind of thing and just be more like just using your will instead of using the sword, because you'll start getting caught when you start thinking about it. That's exactly what's going on there. Okay. I think... Okay, that's close. Where is Obi-Wan? Okay. Obi-Wan lifts his lightsaber in the balanced two-handed guard of Artaru, Qui-Gon's style, and Yoda's. There's more than that. It may have just been a little later and like being mixed in and say, I don't care. I don't know what any of this is. Skywalker brought his lightsaber to a Sheehan ready. Might be mispronounced that. Hand of black glove, Dursteel cocked high at his shoulder, blade angling upward and away. And then we get a little bit further. Where is it? Where it describes his. It was like Makashi or something like that. And it's like, I don't care. And it's not like it's banter, like in The Princess Bride, where... Well, there's actually two things. And you know what? Hang on. How close am I to that? Okay. It's 2 away. I don't want to get to it right now. But it would have been a perfect transition. So in The Princess Bride, when Wesley and Indigo are fencing, and they're bantering back and forth about the different sword techniques that they know. There's multiple reasons for that, but it is actually banter there. So there is... So you're registering what other people are saying, as opposed to Dooku just describing this, just providing commentary for it. I don't care. I don't know what this is. I also don't know what exactly they're talking about with Princess Bride, but it's given the context with the banter, like the whole, oh, I see, because of the rocky terrain, you may think I would use this style, but I actually find this style more appropriate. It's like, you're explaining why you're even talking about it there. It is so much better than this. So much better. And it's also part of their testing of each other. And that's the thing that I will be getting to. We're testing each other in a fight is fair. That makes perfect sense. But there's a trope going on in this that I despise. And I'll get to that. But yeah, it is just dropping these names. It's like, I don't care. Especially because it's like, there's no meaning to them here. Ventress, you're giving me meaning. Maul, I'm a little confused by the whole what the Black Suns is and all that. But still, there's some meaning there. I know who Maul is. But it's like, so much is just, yeah, what do I care? Also, it keeps referring to his cloak, at least, as armor weave. It's like, okay, so what he's wearing is not just basic fabric. What does that matter? Does it reflect, does it block blasters? Because he's not against blasters, he's against lightsabers. So what's the relevancy here? Or is there not? Is this the whole perma-steel and transparent steel? Or no, perma-concrete and transparent steel. It's like, well, it's glass and concrete. We don't need this like jargon that's truly nonsensical. We don't need it. It doesn't add anything to the story. Stop using it. I mean, unless you're going to actually have it have meaning, don't do it. Because it is jargon then. So is the whole using this technique and that technique, the Makashi kind of thing. It's jargon. Jargon is bullshit. It legitimately is. This is actually... I wish I could remember the source clearly. But one thing that I had seen a while ago was the amount of jargon used in like scientific papers actually increased about 100 years ago now. It was around the beginning of the 20th century. Prior to that, scientific articles were actually written in such a way that a layperson could read them and understand them. But then what ended up happening was the scientific community started using jargon because it was a way to show off to each other. That you would almost have a contest to see if you can write something that uses so much jargon that it becomes incomprehensible even to other people in your field. This is incomprehensible to a certain point, at a certain level, and it's boring and distracting. Don't do it. It doesn't help anything. The mention of interest is fine. You have the full context there. The banter in Prince Sprite is fine. It gives context and it serves to build up these characters, and it's part of testing each other. It makes sense. It has a place. Just straight jargon does not, and that's what it is in here. And it's just... I'm already past 20 freaking minutes. Okay. Now we can get to the next thing. And then the thing after that is where I'm really gonna... I know I'm gonna have a rant here. I'm also gonna rant here with this one, but it's point after that's definitely gonna get me going. Actually, no. Everything that's left is gonna be ranting for me. I'm sorry. But it is just... This is so infuriating. There is effectively nothing in here. I really, really enjoyed the Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda fighting Dooku. Especially Anakin and Obi-Wan because of how long that lasted. That Dooku's a fencer. That because he is a fencer, he knows how to fight people with lightsabers, and neither of them do. They know how to handle somebody with blasters. They don't know how to handle somebody who's fencing. Because it really helps describe these characters so well, and explains why he is so dominant over them. It's not that he's stronger than them. Technically, it's not even that he's better than them. It's that he knows how to counter them. So sort of, just intellectually, he's at a higher level than they are. Not physically, and not necessarily even like pure sword skill. Like if you could quantify that, he might not be above them. But because he knows how to counter them, and they don't know how to counter him, he is winning and he is dominant. That is interesting, and it's without jargon as well. To just here's the reason why. It was so much more interesting, and I really, really enjoyed it. And disappointed me when I watched the movie again to see that there's nothing like that. He's just swinging a lightsaber around. It really, that weakens the scene so much. But it also, with that, when Yoda comes in and is just handling him, it further shows that, yes, Dooku is a master fencer, so he can handle these, but Yoda is still so far above him that even if Yoda isn't a master fencer, which in theory he should be, remember, he trained Dooku. Even if not, he's still at such a high level that he can handle that. But the way, because it did describe that Dooku had to move around, but it would be the minimum necessary movement to avoid attacks, while Yoda did not have to move around. He could just parry perfectly. It's like, that was actually really cool, and it's kind of like just power scaling here, okay? Well, it's not technically power scaling, because, as I said, Dooku could have been weaker, but because he knew how to use his power, he was better. Okay? That was really cool. We don't have that. And it gets worse. I was like, we don't have the acknowledgement that he's a fencer and they're not. But what's worse is, and by the way, I have to amend when I'm going to be going shortly, but it still is, this is all valid criticism because of what follows. Just hear me out. You also have it written, it is from Dooku's perspective, it is his commentary at this, that they have not trained. They have not tried to do anything to counter him. All the Jedi would know, that at some point one of them will have to fight Dooku. And he's a master fencer. So every single one of them should have been training to know how to handle a fencer. right? That had to have been part of their training. But this, it's like, nope. He's like, I'm completely dominant. They are nothing. I can end them at any time. Just keeps going. And it's like, this is so stupid. And it's also his confidence with it is such a major problem. Because he also has a commentary that's kind of interesting, but it is too lore breaking in that the only conclusion is he's a freaking moron. Because he reflects on how the Jedi, their actions are directed by the Force, right? That the Force flows through them. And we got this a lot in Attack of the Clones. The whole, they would just suddenly find themselves like moving their blades. They're not conscious of it. They would just do that because that's the Force was telling them they had to. The Force was doing that to block an incoming blade or incoming blaster bolt, whatever. It's still, we have that description there. Whereas Dooku is like, well, they're being directed by the Force. I am directing the Force, which is actually part of the nature of the dark side. I'm trying to remember if that was actually established in the original trilogy or not, or if it was just in like Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones, that it is the Force flows through a Jedi, while the I kept using the analogy of a river, being like you're in a river and you're just following the flow of it. You may also try to redirect the flow, but it's minor. It's always small stuff because you can't control the river. While the Sith do try to directly control the river. They try to force the river one way or another, which could be very powerful, but it's still ultimately the river would win. So the dark side should always ultimately fail because the Force is greater than you. Sort of ultimate arrogance versus ultimate humility kind of thing there. But he sees it as, well, that's the reason why I'm always dominant. It's like, okay, Dooku, let's think about this. So you're saying that a Sith at your level, yes, could direct the Force, and so it's not that it's not that you're truly blocking them. It's not that you're truly parrying your attacks, and this is how it's actually described in their attack. But that you are having them direct their blades to your parries. That it's not even like you are having to parry them. They're just attacking your sword. Yes, that is it. Okay. So this is what a Sith is capable of doing. Yes, okay. So, all those millennia ago, when the Sith were first formed and fought the Jedi, they did this and exterminated the Jedi, and this has been a Sith empire ever since. Right. That's what happened, right? Well, no, clearly not. So, in that case, your whole conclusion here is false. This is stupid. Okay? I mean, you can't set up this character, unless you want the character to be a freaking moron. You can't set him up as being so clearly dominant, so much more powerful than his opponents. And it's not just because it's this opponent, that, but all of his opponents. That by the nature of how they fight, you are always going to be... But you can't do that and have it be that, oh, well, for thousands of years, we've been in secret because, we've not been powerful enough. You're clearly powerful enough. You've been powerful enough the entire time because it's by the nature of what you do. It's stupid. Which gets us to the next thing. Remember I said that testing is fine? Yes, testing in a battle is fine. In a fight is fine. Because, it lets you find out what somebody is doing before you take the risk of just diving in for a full-on onslaught. Yes. Want to make sure that was the right word. It formed a little differently in my head, so I had to check. That makes some sense. I also think it's kind of unnecessary in some cases. Like, if you intend to kill somebody, just go at them full force. But it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's annoying when they're not doing that. But if they're testing, it's like, okay, I can understand that, because measuring your enemy, there's value in that. And who knows, it may still be oh yeah, they're insignificant, and then just swat them away right away while you're still testing. That's fine. But in this, I literally wrote the note I just was going that rant for. And then I continued reading, and it's like, oh, they were pretending the entire time it was a ruse to sucker Dooku in. That's even how it's put it. I mean, it's his commentary instead, but were they suckering me in? Have I been suckered in? Something like that. Because these techniques that they were using, oh no, they've learned other techniques in order to counter me. It's like, am I happy that that means they trained? Yes, but it's also this dude is a very lethal enemy. You know he's powerful. You know he wants to kill you. You know you need to kill him. Like, you cannot go at Dooku thinking that we're going to capture him. You have to go at a being like that believing you have to kill him. Lethal intent is necessary here. If at the time of, at the moment of truth, essentially, if you find that you can capture him, then you might be able to do it. That's fine. But you don't attack him not intending to kill him. You need to go at it that way. And it's like, oh no, this was their plan the entire time. Both of them. Deciding that, oh yeah, we're going to play with him. We're going to let him think that he can beat us. And then it's like, oh no, I hate this trope. No, I despise this trope. I loathe this trope. Because it is so stupid. Because like, okay, well, what happens if you make a mistake? And then he kills you. It's like, why didn't you go? I mean, fine. Maybe you don't go all out. Because maybe you are just testing the enemy. Your enemy. So that you can figure that. But when you do that, you're trying to keep pace with them. You never let them think that there's a gap like that. Not in this kind of setup. Because he might get lucky. And then you're dead. And now that great strategy of yours is meaningless. I mean, it's the whole, you're overconfident, so you're dead. You shouldn't do that. In fact, that is one flaw that was occurring to me as I was going through this, is that for Dooku, part of his character flaw for him is he believes himself so dominant, so powerful, that he is overconfident. He doesn't believe anyone can touch him. And it's like, there's no reason for him to really believe that. I mean, it's one thing in Return of the Jedi, in the throne room, when Vader and Luke are fighting, and it finally occurs to Vader that Luke might be stronger than him. That's different, because Vader knows that's his son, and that his son is young, and he also knows he is the chosen one, not Luke. He knows that. I mean, now, true, technically, he wouldn't actually know he was the chosen one, because I'm not sure if that had been established yet in the lore, but it still is. He knows he is a master, and that Luke isn't. And he knows, I'm your father. And so it would make sense that he has the view of, sort of, I brought you into this world, I can take you out. So him being surprised that Luke could push him back makes sense. Dooku has no reason for that. There's no reason for him to believe that he can handle both Obi-Wan, a Jedi Master, and a Jedi Master like himself, but who's younger, and Anakin, who is younger still, and very powerful. There's no reason for him to be so overconfident, except he's a freaking moron. I mean, so, yeah, but it is. That's exactly what was doing. It's like, this isn't intelligent, okay? For anyone thinking, oh, but it was a trick. It's like, no. You don't trick. You don't try to trick people when you're in a life or death battle like this, a battle to the death, okay? You don't do that. You can test. That's fine. Technically, rope-a-dope is a strategy, but that's... Think about it. You rope-a-dope somebody when you also know they're not going to kill you. I mean, it's like, you don't... If you got your fists up and you're intending to rope-a-dope somebody who has a gun, you're a moron. Okay? But that's kind of what you're suggesting that they're doing here, is that they... And it's not even... It's suggested that they are trying to rope-a-dope Dooku either, because... I guess I should also explain that rope-a-dope... I don't remember who he did it against, but Muhammad Ali used this against somebody. And it's also, if you watch the movie Rocky 3, that's how Rocky ultimately defeats, I can't remember the name, but it's played by Mr. T. Anyway, he rope-a-dopes in that it's where you basically are against the ropes and you're letting yourself be pummeled. I mean, you are blocking, you are covered, but you're taking the beating. The reason why is because it tires out your enemy. Because, and in Rocky 3, I wish I could remember his name. I can't think of what Mr. T's character name was, so I'll just have to go with Mr. T. His character was all about power, all about strength. So he basically would come in and just knock you out in a single punch or very, very rapidly. So he had no stamina because he didn't need it. He was just power. So Rocky took advantage of that. It kind of goes back to the whole, your threats are also assets. By knowing your threat and how he works, that's an asset for you. Dooku is entirely dismissive of that. So I wanted to see. I got 5 minutes left before I'm at 35 minutes. So I'm almost to 40. I know I'm going to hit it. But it's like, so he's tiring out his opponent. So then when he starts fighting, he's more or less fresh. And his opponent cannot even defend himself because he's too tired. He's too weak at this point. He's exhausted. There's no suggestion here that they're aware that Dooku could exhaust himself. Now, Dooku does refer to himself as becoming exhausted, but then it also, a little bit later, talks about how he'll just pull more of the Force into him, and now he feels the years come off him like he's a young man. So it's like, clearly that can't be your strategy. So then why are you doing it? I mean, it's like, there can be a strategy to it, but it's not a straight-up ruse in that case. Well, it is kind of a ruse, but it's also like you're exploiting your opponent's characteristics. There's no suggestion of that here at all. There's no reason to believe there's a benefit to doing this either. It's just they're doing it because they're idiots. And I hate that. It is such a dumb trope. And these fights are not games, okay? Unless there is such an actual wide gap that you can just play with your opponent. And it's like, when I do the assigned reading stuff for the Children of Many Gifts, I do have one character. That's exactly what he does. He has multiple enemies because he goes from one battle to one fight to the next, to the next, to the next. And he doesn't take a lot of them seriously, so he plays games with them. And massive gap. But there's such a massive gap between them, he can. Because he knows they aren't a threat to him. So he's seeing what they're doing. It's actually part of how he's testing them to figure out what are they capable of. And then it's, a lot of his focus is on his own survival. So he's doing this to learn, but he's also doing it to show off. And so there is motivation for him doing that, for him holding back to let them think they're better than they are. It also can, in some cases, allow him to also start stretching his own abilities in ways he hasn't stretched them before. But it still is fundamentally, he doesn't care. Because he knows they can't hurt me. I am too powerful. I am immortal. They are nothing. They are nothing to me but a plaything. Anakin and Obi-Wan are acting like that. But Dooku is not a plaything to them, and should never be treated like that. The distance between them is nowhere near what my characters have between them. Okay? This is a dumb trope and should not be used, certainly not in this context, and potentially not at all. I hate the trope. It needs to be given a reason. I gave it a reason. This doesn't have that reason. And when you don't have the reason, it shouldn't be used at all. There, I clarified because I did misspeak how I put that. But it's just, I so hate it. I really so hate it. Obi-Wan's not. Oh, yeah, it also describes, with the whole he pulled the Force into him, that he then uses a portion of that to slam Obi-Wan against the wall so hard that actually breaks some of the permacrete, the concrete. Which I will at least give credit for this. Having a starship built with concrete in there, I'm good with that. That actually makes sense. Why wouldn't you use the material? I mean, okay, it might be porous, but you could have an outer layer of something that's non-porous, like metal or plastic. But inside you still use concrete. That's fine. That makes sense. There's no reason not to use that, because it is a very viable, usable material. Anyway. So Obi-Wan is out of the fight now, so he's just fighting Skywalker. Just fighting Anakin. Skywalker leapt from the balcony. Even as the boy hurtled downward, Dooku felt a new twist in the currents of the Force between them, and he finally understood. Sorry. The Force said the amount of energy he used to throw Obi-Wan away, he's now able to use more than that. Like, he basically may have just killed Obi-Wan, is how much power he put into this. But now he's having to use more than that just to resist, just to block Anakin's attack. So it's okay. That was right before what I just read, and I'm about to continue reading. He understood how Skywalker was getting stronger, why he no longer spoke, how he had become a machine of battle. He understood why Sidious had been so interested in him for so long. Skywalker was a natural. There was a thermonuclear furnace. I think that this person, that was like word of a day kind of thing for him. Because, like, why would you use it? Anyway, where his heart should be, and it was burning through the firewalls of his Jedi training. He held the Force in the clench of a white-hot fist. He was half Sith already, and he didn't even know it. Dooku. Frickin' chosen one. You think he's not going to be a natural? You think he's not going to be more powerful than you? He should be considering Anakin a threat the entire frickin' time. The entire time. I'm hurting my throat with this. Hang on. That's better. He should never be this overconfident against Anakin. He should never be this overconfident. This dismissive of his powers. It's like, fine, he's not as skilled as you. Fine. But he's freaking powerful. This was established back in Phantom Menace. In the Phantom Menace. It's like he should have full awareness of this. It was like, he's a natural. I'm saying, this is just dumb. Why would you write that line even? It's like, oh, he's just a natural at the... What? Of course he is. They all should be. They all should be training to the point that they're naturals. I mean, it's like the whole Zen thing with Musashi. It's like, that's exactly the point they should be trying to get to. It's like, he's a natural. That explains everything. What is wrong with you, man? The last note I have here is that I want Dooku dead. Not because he's a bad guy. He's just so freaking insufferable. He is such an idiot. A racist idiot. Which kind of goes hand in hand anyway, but it's still such a frickin' moron and a fool. He can't put 2 and 2 together to save his damn life. I want him dead. Okay. Fuck that book for the moment. We're going headcanon. Okay, so my headcanon is this. Going back to Attack of the Clones, and I talked about it. Dooku, learning from Newt Gunray, as did the Jedi Council, that there was a Dark Lord of the Sith, this Darth Sidious, who's controlling the Senate, and by extension, then potentially controlling the Jedi. Dooku decides we must do something about this, but the Jedi Council's like, no, we're not. We serve the Republic, so we do this, and he's probably just lying. We're not going to worry about it. It's like, but we must. No. Fine, I'm out. So he leaves, because he recognizes this is irreconcilable. There's no way to resolve this issue that he has with the Council, and that they are potentially corrupt. So he leaves, and he knows the Senate is corrupt. He recognizes that, so he's out. Claims what fortune he can. Shouldn't be hereditary, but he goes back, does that. Comes Count Dooku, as opposed to just Dooku. He's Count Dooku. And he starts pushing against the Republic as far as it is corrupt. But he also is studying, he's learning, trying to figure out who this Sidious is, or at least who he is controlling. Right? He's doing that. Then he starts being open about how the Republic is corrupt, and he starts courting different groups like the Trade Federation, the Commerce Guild, and so on. So he starts forming a separatist movement because they are corrupt, they're abusing us, taking advantage of us, all that. So let's start separating out. Because it's like, it is corrupt, we need to change that. And let's even say that he's going to people that he knows aren't good people, like the Trade Federation, but it's still that's a place to start. He can maybe control them, and he can also try to sway those who will agree with him but are potentially not as powerful, but would be more inclined to just fix the Republic as opposed to opposing it. But he starts building up this following. But he also wants the Trade Federation stuff. He wants these armies because he knows that as he does this, he can be a third party. He can interfere with whatever this Dark Lord is planning. So he's trying to throw that off. He's trying to disrupt those plans. So he's doing this. He's doing all that he can to build this up because he knows if he weakens the Republic, then he weakens the Dark Lord because the Dark Lord controls the Republic via the Senate. That is correct. So he's doing all this. And finally, he is surprised to learn that, wait, they have this clone army. So now it is actually all-out war. But still is, I have to beat him. I have to do this. But I still don't know who he is, so I can't just expose him to the Jedi. Okay. War starts, and he believes, well, this will help curtail Sidious's power. But as he continues going, he needs these allies. So he starts, having all of them there. He's still the political leader, and so technically the head. But he brings in these others, such as the cold and efficient General Grievous. So he brings him in, who is terribly efficient, terribly brutal at what he does. And it's in some ways helpful, because Dooku potentially, with his Jedi training, that isn't how he thinks. He's a competent general, but Grievous is something else. Grievous will win wars, right? If you just give him the power. So he lets him have that. So he can focus on other things. He can focus on bringing in more. He can focus on that investigation again to figure out who Sidious is. And then he learns. He comes to learn that Sidious is Palpatine. It's like, oh no. If Sidious is Palpatine, then we must leap there. We must go and capture him. Because if we capture him and expose him, then we can start cleansing the Republic, and it shall be saved. Okay. So he does this, but he knows the Jedi will do all they can to help Palpatine because they don't realize he's Sidious, so he must capture and expose him. So this mad dash to Coruscant, this crazy attack, abduct him, bring him onto this ship. And now the Jedi are coming, and he knows this, but he's like, if I can beat them, if I can get enough time to do something to expose Sidious, to expose Palpatine and Sidious, I can do that. This is a better story. And I'm not just saying that because it's my story. It's my headcanon. I'm not just saying it for that, but because it's... Now he has these motivations that aren't just he's lying the entire time. And it just... But it then turns out, it's like, why are certain things that... Well, Grievous is actually serving Sidious. It's like, you could do that and it would be so much more interesting. And it wouldn't have him being this overconfident idiot. Where he's actually very intelligent. It's just... Palpatine is a better mastermind than him. So it elevates up Palpatine even more. It's that he could still... I thought I was countering him, but in fact, he managed to take advantage of the situation, turn it to his benefit. Be so much better than that slop. And it is. I'm almost hitting 50 minutes. It was like that Dooku would need to die, but I wouldn't necessarily want him to die. Because he'd be interesting, but I know he must die. Because if he doesn't die, he may expose Sidious. So Palpatine will do what he can to make sure Dooku dies. And the Jedi want to capture him, so it also then gives that opportunity for a Jedi, Anakin, to kill Dooku and technically fall. It's like, they should capture him, but Palpatine can manipulate to do that. It's like, this works. And it's also the whole, who's the apprentice for Sidious? It's been Anakin all along. He's been shaping him. He's been molding him this entire time without Anakin realizing it was to bring him to the dark side. And actually, hang on. That whole, the angrier he got, the more afraid he became, and the fear fed his anger in turn. So it's basically, Anakin is holding back his full power because he doesn't want to just unleash himself. And so Dooku taunts him because by making him be emotional, it catches him, and we get like the proverbial Corellian multipede. Now that he has started thinking about what he is doing, he can no longer walk. Then Sidious, for some reason, decided to intervene as Dooku's getting the upper hand. Don't fear what you're feeling, Anakin. Use it. Call upon your fury, focus it, and he cannot stand against you. Rage is your weapon. Strike now, strike, kill him. Dooku realizes, hey, I'm being betrayed. But it's like, technically those lines aren't so good because even Anakin should be like, well, that's wrong. That's not Jedi. I mean, thank you, but that's not Jedi teaching. And there isn't anything. A Jedi being using the fury, it might be tempting the dark side, and it is also like I went like that with the whole. He was half Sith already and didn't even know it. It's like part of the thing that I know I've talked about previously, is that balance to the Force might be balancing between the good and evil in you, and actually having a mastery of that so you can reject the evil and it's to take on the good, which I would say Luke demonstrates that in Return of the Jedi. Anakin is supposed to achieve this, but he's just been so screwed up by his dysfunctional relationships that it's he can't fully recognize what that balance is. But it is a, yes, half Sith, because he's supposed to be. And his fury, if he maintains control of it, isn't necessarily going to lead him to fall to the dark side. Especially, the control itself is what would be defying the dark side. Right? So, it's I didn't like that line because it's like, well, it's kind of dumb there. But it is still, that is something that Palpatine, in the whole, don't fear what you're feeling, Anakin, use it, call upon your fury, and focus it, and he cannot stand against you. Just leave it at that. You don't need rage as your weapon. Strike now, strike, kill him. That's more getting into the Sith territory. But you could do that, and then it's like realizing, oh my god, Palpatine is better than me. Like, he set this up. He set up my being. Maybe it was even Grievous suggested the attack or something, and he realized at that moment, I just realized how I could beat him, but Palpatine knows the one thing to say for him to overcome me. I never stood a chance. That would be so much better! It would be better for Dooku. It would be better for Palpatine. But no, none of that. Because it's not well written. And it's, again, it would become a, technically Dooku is a bad guy, but I'd be disappointed at his death. And it would also then be interesting because would Dooku then, like in that scenario, would he then try to surrender? And how could he? Like, would he try to surrender to Anakin? Well, actually, no, that would make sense. Yes, he could try to surrender to Anakin, realizing the situation he's in. It's just like, okay, done. But Anakin wouldn't trust him. Because to Anakin, he'd be thinking, you're a Sith, you're treacherous, you're a liar. So he's like, this is another part of the trap. This is another trick. And so he'd be hesitant, thinking, like, take the lightsaber and still do the whole holding it there, and then Palpatine tells him to kill him and all that. You know, just something. It's like, you could still have something like that there, and it's just... So then you have Anakin have to make the choice at Palpatine's direction, so it's a little bit of, I'm just following orders nonsense, but it still is. You could do something, it would be so much more interesting. You could even have Dooku trying to say, Palpatine is... And then maybe Palpatine himself does something that shuts his mouth. Like, he uses Force to shut him, and Anakin just doesn't notice because he's too much caught up in everything. It's like, you could do so much there that would just, it would have been so much better, but can't have that. And yeah, no, I'll just say it. And I mean, what the hell? I don't care. I mean, the video's so long, might as well let it be longer. Part of the issue, I think, and I'm pretty sure I'd said this before, is it does seem like the people writing this were thinking that a grand conspiracy, a grand strategy is one that has to be massive and have all these intricacies, be all wonderful and complex. And you see that then when it all falls into place, that makes it look so good. No, it makes you look lucky for the all to fall into place. Like the whole, what if Palpatine just had a heart attack before the Clone War started? His plan would fall apart then. But what I was describing with Dooku, it would show he adapts his plan, because that's true skill. That's what a mastermind truly does. You don't need, you keep it simple, so then when something changes, like if you're trying to go this way, but you get deflected this way, but if it's simple, you can bring it back to what you want. Because it's not, oh, you just broke half my plans. It's like, well, no, it's just a distraction from the plan. It can come right back. That always corrects right back. Because you're ready for that. Because you're not making it overly complicated. You're not making it so sensitive to these variables you can't control or variables you didn't predict. That comes right back. That is much more intimidating, much more threatening. But it seemed like this was written as though, no, having these incredibly sensitive things, sensitive plans, that's what makes you really intelligent for it to... No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. It doesn't. And it frustrates me. Because it should be better, and I don't think that that's, like, novel thinking. It's like, I think I'm a better writer than that. Not necessarily on a grand level, but it's like I recognize so many weaknesses here that it's like, come on. But it's just, I can't be the only person that would read that and be like, yeah, this is actually really dumb. This doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be this way. I cannot believe that. So it just makes it really disappointing. That's exactly what it is. And I also do wonder a little bit how much of this is, well, the jargon kind of stuff. That's absolutely the author, not coming from Lucas. But I do wonder if some of it, like the grand plan thing, was Lucas insisting on that. And if it is, then that is, well, I guess it's no more or less disappointing than somebody else. But it is just one of those things. I think if I were one of these authors, I would be like, realizing what's going on here. I'd be like, George, thank you so much for this opportunity, but let me try to sell you on this. I really think if we do it this way, it will be better, and I can explain to you why. Let's just go through this and try to do that. And I would, as I said before, why do I hate fan fiction? Because I don't like the idea. If you have a good idea for a story, why tie yourself to somebody else's work then? Write it yourself so that it is your story, completely yours. You're not attached to anyone else. Because for this scenario, this absolute hypothetical, Lucas could always just say, it's my story, we're doing it my way. Hopefully he would also be kind enough to be like, thank you for giving me those suggestions, but this is what I want to do. Just respect on both sides, essentially. But it's still like, I would have had to have done that, because it's like, this isn't that good. Because it just, how do you not have the one card come out from the bottom of this house and it not all collapse? Whereas Dooku, what I was essentially describing, if he was a third party in my headcanon, there would be like somebody trying to knock down the house and realizing, oh, it's not a house of cards. Because Palpatine is that good. Or maybe something falls, but it ends up bracing against something else and you put up a new wall. I'm like, it's... Yeah. One problem with some of this is I have ideas for stories that can support grand conspiracies, but I don't have any ideas for them. So it's like I'm like consciously now trying to think. Probably I've got two stories that I know I want to do. I've got other stories where maybe I'm not so committed to doing. Other ideas, I should say. But it's like I'm trying to think of how could I put these kinds of conspiracies in there to do it right, in my opinion, right, to do it better than this, certainly. And it's like I don't actually know what would work. But to be fair, both of those are probably years away from me ever writing them. So I got plenty of time to think about it. And it's not until I actually will sit down and start writing it that it may form. It's just how writing can work sometimes. But it is like, I am consciously thinking about that because like it really does need to be better. And I'm actually trying to think, because I was referencing Princess Bride. In a way, Prince Humperdinck's plan is also somewhat simple. Kidnap my bride-to-be, murder her, and make it look like it is my enemy so we can go to war. It doesn't matter where she necessarily is killed, or who necessarily kills her, so long as he can control the evidence, which he already did by having the Gilder insignia on her horse that already suggests it was Gilda doing that. And he's the prince. He's leading the hunt for her. And so he can declare what it is he's finding. He has that control. That's simple. It is. He's trying to start a war. He's trying to achieve ultimate power. Well, yeah, ultimate power, not necessarily unlimited power. But it's like he's trying to do that. But it's a much simpler plan, and it almost works. Even Wesley doesn't necessarily have the ability to throw it off for him. I mean, it certainly does, but even then, it's she's rescued, she's alive, well, I'll just kill her myself then, and claim it was a spy, because it still is. I just set up that they're trying to kill her. So now, it does, and this valiant hero rescued her. Wonderful. Now, when I kill her, I can still blame it on the same people. And it's, want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. It makes, it works fine because his goal doesn't have to change. He just changes his direction coming at it. It's so much better. Which is so sad to say. Prince Humperdinck might have been a better mastermind than Palpatine. I gotta stop now. That is such a disturbing thought.